Have you ever walked into a bustling room, full of chatter and bright lights, only to feel like your energy is leaking away with every passing second? It's almost as if the crowd itself is pulling something out of you, leaving you tired, disconnected, and wishing you could disappear for a bit of peace and quiet. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone, and you're certainly not too sensitive in a negative sense. In fact, many people who experience this sense of overwhelm in busy places are going through a powerful spiritual shift. Some call it awakening, others refer to it as being chosen for a higher purpose. Either way, it's a sign that something deeper is unfolding within you. So, why does being in a crowd suddenly feel so intense? Like every voice has its own gravitational field trying to tug on your spirit? We'll dive deep into that question here. We'll talk about the hidden reasons you might be feeling drained, how it's connected to a larger spiritual calling, and how you can use this experience as a catalyst for growth. By the end, you'll see that your ability to sense the energy around you is not a curse or a shortcoming. It's actually a gift, a superpower that can lead you to your purpose. Let's embark on this journey together. Recognizing the crowd drain feeling. Picture this. You're at a lively gathering, maybe a family reunion, a busy shopping mall, or even a conference at work. People swarm around you with laughter, talk about weekend plans, or maybe share jokes. Nothing is particularly wrong, yet you feel an unexplainable heaviness. Your mind races, your chest tightens, and it's as though you're surrounded by a thick fog. Ever wondered why your friends can be dancing around with excitement, while you're already counting down the seconds until you can slip away? That's the crowd drain feeling. It creeps up on you, often leaving you physically and emotionally exhausted. Sometimes, it even sparks a touch of guilt. Am I just antisocial? But here's the surprising truth. This sensitivity often signals that you're in the midst of a profound spiritual awakening. It's not about hating crowds or being incapable of socializing. It's about sensing hidden currents of energy that most folks simply overlook. Think of your senses like a set of antennas. Before your awakening, those antennas were tuned to a basic station, enough to pick up everyday signals. After awakening, they suddenly switch over to a station with broader coverage and higher frequency. Sounds get louder, emotions more palpable, and you start catching subtle vibes floating around a space. While this can be overwhelming, it also means you're gradually seeing beyond the surface and tapping into a deeper reality. The chosen one concept, myth, or reality. The term chosen one might sound grandiose. You might picture epic heroes from movies or mythical stories. Yet in spiritual contexts, being chosen doesn't necessarily mean you're meant to save the entire planet single-handedly. It usually points to a calling or mission that's uniquely yours, shaped by your personal journey, gifts, and experiences. It's akin to being entrusted with a precious seed that only you can nurture. Feeling separate or extra sensitive in crowded environments could be the gentle, or sometimes not so gentle, nudge that there's something distinctive about your path. It may be that your spirit is attuned to energies or truths that remain invisible to others. That doesn't make you inherently better, just different in a way that might be significant for fulfilling a specific purpose. This notion of being chosen can also come with its fair share of pressure, doubt, or even loneliness. After all, how do you explain that you feel called to do something meaningful, yet you're uncertain what form it will take? Or that being in a sea of faces feels draining because your inner world has grown so sensitive and wide awake? Accepting this new chapter is part of the journey. Recognize that the draining sensation is a clue, not a flaw. Like a compass, it points you inward, urging you to figure out what resonates with your deepest truth. The sensitivity surge when your senses go HD. Ever switched from an old television set to a top-of-the-line high-definition display? The details pop, the colors intensify, and suddenly you notice things you never saw before, like small patterns on a piece of clothing, or the subtle shift of an actor's expression. That's a pretty good metaphor for the sensitivity surge that accompanies spiritual awakening. Before your shift, life might have been more straightforward in loud, bustling places. You walked around, chatted, maybe felt a little tired if the day was long, but nothing unusual. Then, it's like someone flipped the HD switch on your senses. Now you feel each micro-expression, interpret every emotional undercurrent, and pick up on the swirl of energies in a room with a razor-sharp acuity that most people don't even realize is possible. Is it draining? Absolutely. Imagine going from listening to a single violin to suddenly perceiving an entire orchestra playing simultaneously. At first, it's overwhelming. Every note, every instrument competes for your attention. Over time, though, you learn to distinguish each section of the orchestra, to appreciate how they blend, and even to anticipate the melody. The same goes for your spiritual senses. Initially, the world feels louder and more intense, but with practice, you can distinguish what's important from the background noise. Energy overload: why crowds feel chaotic. Let's talk about energy for a moment. We're not just referring to physical energy, like the vigor you get from a good night's sleep. We're talking about emotional and spiritual energy, the kind that can't be measured with a simple scale or a cup of coffee. In a crowd, there's a collective energy field made up of everyone's emotions, intentions, and even subconscious thoughts. You might think of it like walking into a busy kitchen. There are pots boiling, ovens preheating, dishes clattering, and multiple meals in progress. Each individual brings a distinct dish to the environment. For someone with heightened sensitivity, it's like standing in the center of that kitchen, trying to make sense of all the aromas, sounds, and sizzling pans at once. This can lead to what some people call energy overload. You're absorbing fear from one corner, excitement from another, tension from a group in the back, and so on, often without realizing it consciously. No wonder you're exhausted. Your system is processing data at a rapid pace, like a computer forced to run multiple heavy-duty programs all at once. Understanding that this is an energetic overwhelm, rather than just social awkwardness, can make a huge difference. It means your solution lies in learning how to navigate these collective energy fields, not in berating yourself for not fitting in. Breaking free from the small talk trap. Remember how you used to chat about the latest movie releases, traffic jams, or upcoming sales without a second thought? Now those topics might feel unbearably shallow, leaving you itching to discuss life's deeper mysteries. It's almost as if your soul is done with the kiddie pool and is craving the depth of the ocean. This longing for substance can make typical small talk even more draining than the crowd itself. You're not snubbing anyone or believing you're too advanced for ordinary chatter. It's just that, after you've tasted the richness of spiritual exploration, the mundane topics might feel like trying to drink from an empty cup. There's simply no nourishment there for your newly awakened self. This can be a significant turning point socially. Perhaps you've noticed it's harder to keep up with old friends who still love gossiping about trivial matters. Or maybe you find yourself drawn to new acquaintances who want to analyze the meaning of life, the nature of consciousness, or the magic of synchronicities. It's okay to feel this way. It doesn't mean you've become cold or elitist. It's merely a sign your interests have evolved, reflecting your soul's desire for authenticity and depth. The role of compassion and empathy. One major side effect of your heightened awareness is an increase in empathy. You can feel what others feel, sometimes before they even fully grasp their own emotions. This can be a beautiful gift you sense when someone's heart is heavy and can offer genuine support, or you pick up on someone's excitement and encourage it to bloom. However, absorbing so many emotional signals can also leave you exhausted, especially in large groups where multiple emotional wavelengths collide. You might sense heartbreak, frustration, hope, anxiety, and joy, all within minutes. Imagine juggling multiple flaming torches. It's thrilling, but also physically and mentally demanding. The key is learning how to wield your empathy without letting it drain you. Think of it like having a powerful flashlight in a dimly lit room. You can illuminate what needs to be seen, but you also have to conserve the battery. Boundaries become essential. That might involve excusing yourself when you sense your internal tank hitting empty, or consciously deciding how much emotional energy you can invest in a situation. It's not selfish. In fact, it's one of the most compassionate things you can do for yourself and others. The Jesus example: stepping away to reconnect. Whether or not you identify with Christian teachings, there's a valuable lesson in how Jesus often retreated from the crowds. He healed, preached, and interacted with people constantly, yet he also took deliberate time to go off by himself, pray, and recharge. It's a classic illustration of someone who was in the spotlight but understood the necessity of solitude. Now, this isn't an endorsement that you need to embark on a 40-day desert fast, unless you genuinely feel called to that. It's more about recognizing that your spiritual life flourishes when you balance engagement with withdrawal. Crowds and daily demands can make you feel scattered. To counter this, stepping back into a quiet space, be it your room, a park, a church, or any tranquil setting, provides an opportunity to realign with your inner wisdom. Jesus' pattern reminds us that spiritual work often involves alternating between serving others and reflecting inward. If you're feeling drained after a heavy dose of human interaction, you're not failing anyone. Instead, you might be following an ancient rhythm of action and introspection, both of which are crucial for a fulfilling spiritual path. Identity in flux? Who are you becoming? Have you caught your reflection in the mirror and thought, I don't quite recognize the person staring back at me? Spiritual awakening can bring about a profound shift in how you perceive yourself and the world. Maybe your old routines or hobbies no longer excite you, or certain relationships seem misaligned with your new values. It can feel scary, right? We often invest so much of our identity in our friends, our job, our interests, and suddenly, those things might start feeling like ill-fitting clothes. It's similar to how a caterpillar transitions into a butterfly. During that metamorphosis, there's a stage where the caterpillar literally dissolves within the cocoon and reforms into something entirely new. That messy stage is key to becoming the butterfly. In spiritual terms, you're dissolving old patterns and beliefs that once defined you. The sense of crowd drain can intensify at this stage. You're shifting from a social script that once felt okay into a more authentic expression of yourself. And that transition can magnify any feeling of disconnection in large groups. Embrace this process. It means you're shedding outdated layers to allow your true essence to emerge. Feeling alone despite the crowd, the new lens. A paradox appears when your spiritual awareness ramps up. You understand more about life, unity, and compassion, yet you might feel more alone than ever. It's like gaining access to an exclusive insight that nobody around you seems to grasp. In a crowd, you might even notice you're observing the dynamics rather than actively participating. This isolation isn't necessarily about superiority or snobbishness. It's simply that your vantage point has changed. Like someone who's read the book before watching the movie, you notice inconsistencies, foreshadowing, and hidden themes that others might miss. You see the illusions people cling to, their unconscious patterns, and the deeper truths swirling beneath ordinary conversations. Feeling alone in a crowd can be bittersweet. On one hand, you might yearn to share your insights, to say, look at what's really going on here. But on the other hand, spiritual awakenings can't be forced on anyone. Everyone is on a unique timeline. While you can gently plant seeds of awareness, you can't make them sprout in someone else's garden. The overlooked value of silence. In an age of non-stop texts, pings, and social media updates, silence has become a rare commodity. Yet if you're feeling drained by crowds, silence can be a lifeline. Picture it as stepping into a secret garden where all the external commotion fades, and you can finally hear the subtle whispers of your own heart. Silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of calm. It's an invitation for introspection, a place where you reconnect with who you truly are behind the noise. For those on a path of spiritual awakening, silence can feel like going home. After a long day, like dropping onto a comfortable couch and letting out a contented sigh. In these quiet moments, you can process the emotional residue picked up from others. You can sift through your own thoughts without external interference. You might even receive intuitive guidance that simply can't pierce through the hectic buzz of daily life. Silence, then, becomes not just a luxury, but a powerful tool for spiritual alignment. Setting healthy boundaries. Learning to protect your energy doesn't have to be complicated. It might be as simple as saying no to an invitation when you're already feeling tapped out, or letting friends know you can't stay out all night because you need some downtime to recharge. These boundaries can come across as abrupt if people are used to you being always accessible. But remember, your mental and spiritual well-being matter too. Think of your energy like a battery. You wouldn't use your phone until it's completely dead without recharging, would you? Yet we often do that with ourselves. We keep giving and showing up, even as our internal battery slides down to red. Learning to prioritize your spiritual and emotional health is akin to plugging yourself in so that you can be at full capacity. Boundaries also extend to the kind of company you keep. If certain individuals consistently bring negative energy or drain your spirit, it might be time to evaluate how much access they have to you. This doesn't mean cutting people off harshly. It could be as gentle as limiting the duration of your interactions or meeting in environments that feel less taxing. Embracing your spiritual superpower. It might sound counterintuitive to think of yourself as having a superpower when you're feeling run down by something as mundane as standing in a queue at the grocery store. Yet, your heightened sensitivity can actually be a remarkable gift. You detect shifts in mood before most people do, sense unspoken needs, and understand the emotional landscapes in a room with a depth that others may never reach. By recognizing these abilities as strengths, you can transition from feeling burdened to feeling empowered. Instead of viewing your sensitivity as a liability, treat it as a finely tuned instrument. Just like an accomplished musician can pick out subtle notes in a symphony, you can discern layers of human emotion and spiritual energy. With practice, you'll discover that you can not only sense others' energies, but also actively influence them in positive ways. Your calm presence can soothe a tense environment. Your genuine smile can brighten someone's gloomy mood. Once you learn to regulate your own energetic boundaries, you can become a beacon of peace in chaotic settings, rather than a sponge soaking up every stray vibe. The danger of over-identification. It's easy to get swept up in the label of chosen one and the narrative that you're uniquely burdened. After all, it can feel validating to finally have an explanation for why you're different. But be cautious about letting this identification become a new kind of ego trap. Yes, your sensitivity and spiritual insights set you apart in certain ways. However, the essence of a genuine spiritual journey often lies in humility, unity, and compassion, not in seeing oneself as superior or more evolved. We're all part of a grand tapestry, each with our own roles. Recognizing your unique thread is wonderful, but it's equally important to honor the threads around you. The risk of over-identification is that you might isolate yourself even more, creating a wedge between you and those who haven't undergone a similar awakening. Remember, everyone awakens at their own pace. If you find yourself slipping into judgment, thinking of others as sheep or as sleep pause, and consider whether that perspective truly aligns with a loving, awakened state. Spiritual responsibility when others look to you. As you become more comfortable with your heightened sensitivity, you may find people gravitating toward you for guidance, or simply for the calming energy you exude. They might not consciously realize it, but they sense that you see and feel things differently. This can be both flattering and intimidating. Who are you to give advice, right? The truth is, you don't have to be an all-knowing guru to offer empathy, understanding, and a listening ear. Sometimes, your presence and willingness to be real is more impactful than any piece of profound wisdom you could utter. Yet it's also essential to remember that you're still learning. Don't feel obligated to solve everyone's problems. Set boundaries where needed. Ensure that you're replenishing your own energy so you have enough to share. Embrace the moments when you feel capable of being a light, but also allow yourself the freedom to step back and recover deeper when the load gets heavy. Maybe you've noticed that old friendships don't hold the same spark anymore. The friend group you once cherished might now feel out of sync with where you are internally. It's not that you suddenly dislike them, it's just that your interest in deeper conversations has grown. Where once you might have been content discussing weekend parties, now you crave dialogues about purpose, the nature of reality, or heartfelt personal growth. In large social circles, these deeper conversations might be harder to find. Yet that doesn't mean such connections don't exist. Consider the idea that the universe often orchestrates chance encounters or leads us to new communities when we're ready. If you're feeling a bit lonely after your awakening, use that loneliness as motivation to seek out groups or individuals who resonate with this more profound dimension of life. It's also worth giving your old connections a chance to meet you halfway. Sometimes, people are more open to deeper topics than you might expect. Perhaps they've been waiting for someone to steer the conversation away from surface-level chatter. You never know who might respond positively until you give it a try. Finding freedom in authenticity. Another reason crowds might drain you is the pressure to put on a facade. In many social gatherings, there's an unspoken dress code for behavior. Keep it light, keep it fun, don't rock the boat. After an awakening, you might struggle to keep up that facade because it feels so counter to your current reality. Being authentic can initially feel risky. Will your honesty be met with confusion or rejection? Maybe, but living inauthentically is often more draining than any negative reaction you might receive. Think of authenticity as removing tight, itchy layers of clothing and finally being able to breathe. Over time, you'll discover that being genuine attracts the right kind of people and opportunities. Those who appreciate your candor will gravitate to your orbit. Those who aren't ready for it might fade away, and that's okay. Real spiritual growth often involves pruning, letting go of what no longer serves your journey. The unseen ties that bind collective consciousness. Here's a mind-bending concept. Each time you step into a crowd, you're entering a mini collective consciousness. Every individual contributes energy and thought patterns, forming something like a communal pool. If you're spiritually sensitive, you're dipping into that pool, even if you're not intentionally trying to. Imagine wading into a lake where everyone around you is adding their own currents. Some might carry positivity, others might bring anxiety or hidden frustration. Suddenly, you're not just swimming in your own emotions, you're navigating a swirl of collective energies. No wonder you feel tired. Understanding this can help you depersonalize the experience. Not everything you sense is yours. Sometimes, you'll pick up on the group's collective vibe. Being aware of this allows you to let go of heaviness that doesn't belong to you, and it reinforces why boundaries and self-care are indispensable. Alchemy of solitude, turning alone time into growth. Remember how certain experiences in nature can feel restorative. A quiet walk in the woods, the hush of snow, or the gentle crash of ocean waves. These experiences are potent reminders of how solitude can be transformative. True solitude isn't about loneliness. It's about purposeful withdrawal so you can integrate lessons, receive guidance, and recalibrate your energy. Think of it like a phone updating its operating system. You pause, Turn off some features and let the update process complete. When you turn back on, you're refreshed with a new or refined sense of clarity. For the spiritually awakened, solitude becomes not just a reprieve, but a form of alchemy, turning overwhelm into wisdom. Without that quiet downtime, you might miss vital downloads from your intuition or moments of epiphany that arise in the stillness. Solitude helps you sort through all the external influences you've absorbed and reconnect with your inner compass. Overcoming the loneliness factor. It's normal to feel lonely when you shift away from old social circles or find that your experiences are hard to share. You might feel like an alien on your own planet, wondering if anyone will truly get you. But consider that the discomfort of loneliness can act as a catalyst to seek deeper human connections. There's a sweet spot between solitude and community that many spiritually awakened individuals spend time searching for. It might involve finding a spiritual group, online forums, or local workshops where you can meet like-minded people. Alternatively, you might discover that one or two soul friends are enough to fill that need for connection. The power of presence. We often hear the word mindfulness floating around these days. But in the context of feeling drained by crowds, mindfulness isn't just a trendy buzzword. It's a lifesaver. When you're mindful, you remain rooted in the present moment, aware of what's yours to feel and what belongs to the environment. Try a quick exercise. Next time you're in a crowd, pause for a moment and focus on your breathing. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Notice the sensations in your body, tension in your shoulders, fluttering in your stomach, or any tightness in your chest. Recognize that many of these sensations might be triggered by the crowd's energy. As you breathe out, visualize releasing anything that isn't yours. By staying present, you become like a calm eye in the middle of a storm. The chaos can swirl around you, but you aren't tossed in every direction. This practice helps transform the draining nature of crowds into an opportunity for spiritual mastery, turning each encounter into a lesson in energetic sovereignty, gradually building emotional stamina. Just like physical exercise strengthens your muscles, spiritual and emotional workouts can build your capacity to handle intense situations. Early in your awakening, even a short stint in a bustling place might wipe you out. Over time, as you learn to manage your energy and maintain healthy boundaries, you might find that you can stay in those environments longer without feeling the same level of exhaustion. This doesn't mean you force yourself into draining situations just to toughen up. Rather, think of it like incremental training. You step into a crowded setting with mindful awareness. Use techniques like deep breathing or setting an energetic shield, and observe how you feel. If you become overwhelmed, it's perfectly fine to step away. Every time you successfully navigate a challenging environment, you're essentially telling your psyche, "I can handle this." That builds self-confidence and resilience. Eventually, you'll develop a new baseline that feels more stable, even when you're surrounded by a whirlwind of activity. The delicate dance of relationships. If there's one area where the chosen one awakening can spark real turbulence, it's in your relationships with family, friends, and romantic partners. They might be used to a version of you who never minded noisy parties or who thrived in big social gatherings. Now they might interpret your withdrawal as disinterest or even rejection. Communication is key here. Let them know that you're undergoing an internal shift and that you sometimes need solitude to recharge. Reassure them that it's not personal. Of course, not everyone will understand right away. Some might accuse you of changing, which, let's be honest, you are, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Tuning in to your inner guidance. Heightened sensitivity is like being given the world's most sophisticated satellite receiver. You can tune into signals, both earthly and divine, that others might miss. During a spiritual awakening, you might experience nudges or intuitive flashes that guide your decisions. In crowded places, this can look like an inner alarm bell telling you something's off, about a certain individual or location. Or it could be a soft whisper that encourages you to speak up for someone who seems marginalized or distressed. You might even sense waves of collective emotion, like tension, before an argument erupts. Learning to trust this intuition can help you navigate crowds more gracefully. Instead of feeling passively bombarded, you become an active participant, using your intuition like a compass. When you trust your inner guidance, you'll know exactly when to stay, when to offer help, and when it's time to quietly slip away. Embracing the solitude stage without shame. There may be periods, weeks, or even months, where you feel an overwhelming desire to be alone. During these phases, you might avoid social events entirely, choosing to spend more time meditating, journaling, or simply sitting quietly with your thoughts. This is perfectly normal in the trajectory of spiritual awakening. Similar to how seeds germinate in the darkness of the soil before they sprout above ground, your inner growth might need darkness and silence. Some people around you might not understand, labeling you as withdrawn or antisocial, but you don't have to apologize for a season of self-focus if it's genuinely feeding your spiritual development. Signs you're progressing. Despite the challenges, you'll notice signs that you're growing stronger. Maybe you find you can hold a genuine, heartfelt conversation at a busy event without losing yourself in the static. Or you sense tension in a group and calmly diffuse it with a well-placed joke or a comforting word. You might also notice an increase in synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that hint you're on the right track. For instance, you bump into someone who shares your current spiritual interests, or you stumble upon a book that answers a burning question you've had for weeks. These moments are the universe's gentle confirmations. They remind you that this path, though sometimes isolating, is paved with purpose. Each step you take in managing your sensitivity and forging a deeper connection to the divine is met with guidance and affirmation. Confronting self-doubt and imposter feelings. It's common to doubt yourself, especially when labeled a chosen one. You might think, who am I to be chosen? I don't have it all figured out. That's okay. Self-doubt is part of the growth process. Even the most enlightened figures had moments of uncertainty. Sometimes, simply acknowledging that you don't have all the answers can be a relief. Remember, being spiritually awakened doesn't mean you're perfect or omniscient. It means you're open, curious, and willing to learn. You see beyond the veil of everyday illusions, but you're still navigating the complexities of life. If the imposter syndrome strikes, take a breath and remind yourself that spiritual growth is a journey, not a destination. Every wise teacher was once a confused student. Embrace each new layer of discovery and don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but I'm learning. Navigating expectations from others. People who notice your change might place expectations on you. Perhaps they see your composure and assume you'll always be the calm mediator. Or they think you have some mystical pipeline to all the answers because you're spiritual. While it's wonderful to support others, carrying the weight of their expectations can be draining. It's okay to gently remind them and yourself that you're still human. You have highs and lows, good days and bad days. Being chosen or spiritually tuned in doesn't mean you're obligated to fix everyone's problems. In fact, real spiritual maturity often involves knowing when to step in and when to step back. When you allow yourself the space to be fully human complete, with vulnerabilities, you set a healthy precedent. It shows others that spirituality isn't about wearing a halo all the time. It's about authenticity, growth, and compassion for both yourself and others. The interplay of karma and destiny. Some people believe your sensitivity is part of your karma, meaning there are lessons you're meant to learn through this experience. Others view it as destiny, a path laid out that you're meant to follow. Whether you lean toward karmic explanations or a sense of fate, what remains true is that you have the free will to decide how to respond to these challenges. Feeling drained by crowds, might be a recurring theme in your life, but it doesn't have to remain a struggle forever. Each time you face that discomfort, you're given an opportunity to deepen your coping strategies, refine your boundaries, and reinforce your spiritual connection. In that sense, crowds can act like a teacher, guiding you toward the next level of your development. Reinterpreting challenges as initiations. When a crowd drains you so thoroughly that you collapse on your bed afterward, it might feel like life is punishing you. But consider the idea that these experiences are forms of initiation into deeper spiritual understanding. Each overwhelming event becomes a rite of passage, pushing you to find new coping mechanisms, to refine your energetic boundaries, and to trust your intuition more. Rather than asking, "Why is this happening to me?" shift the question to, "What is this teaching me?" That subtle change in perspective can ignite a sense of purpose. You transform from a victim of circumstances into an active learner in the school of life. In many spiritual traditions, the toughest challenges precede significant breakthroughs. So if you find yourself frequently drained, it might be because your spirit is training for something greater, like a runner preparing for a marathon by building endurance through strenuous workouts. Embracing the universal connection. One of the ironies about feeling drained by crowds is that it may also highlight the profound interconnectedness of all things. You wouldn't pick up on others' energy if there wasn't some invisible thread linking you. This awareness can awaken deep compassion and empathy, even as it overwhelms you at times. Understanding you're connected to everyone doesn't mean you're responsible for everyone. Instead, see it as a reminder that we're all part of a grand tapestry. Your heightened sensitivity is part of what weaves you into this tapestry more tightly. And while it can be taxing, it also offers a chance to cultivate a sense of unity, love, and mutual support. Practical tips for daily life. Here are a few straightforward actions you can incorporate into your routine to lessen crowd drain. Ground yourself before heading into a crowd. Take a moment to visualize roots extending from your feet into the earth, anchoring you. Shield up. Envision a protective bubble or light around your body. It can be any color that feels comforting. Check in regularly during the event. Pause to assess how you're feeling. Are you tense? Excuse yourself for a quick walk or a trip to the restroom to regroup. Hydrate and nourish. Keep a water bottle handy. Staying physically hydrated helps you stay mentally and emotionally balanced. Exit gracefully. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to leave. Offer polite farewells or even a simple wave. Don't push yourself past your limit. These small steps can make a significant difference in how drained you feel after encountering large groups. The importance of forgiveness for self and others. You might feel resentful towards society for not understanding you, or you might beat yourself up for not being able to handle social scenarios like everyone else. Forgiveness becomes crucial here. Forgive yourself for needing more alone time. Forgive others for operating at a different frequency. Carrying resentments only adds an extra burden to your already sensitive spirit. Like a backpack full of rocks, these grudges weigh you down, making every step in a crowd feel heavier. Releasing them frees up energy that can be directed toward your growth and well-being. Forgiveness isn't about condoning negative behavior or pretending differences don't exist. It's about acknowledging that everyone, including you, is doing the best they can with their current awareness. This acceptance can lighten your emotional load significantly. The culmination seeing the bigger picture. Finally, remember that your journey isn't just about avoiding fatigue or finding coping tactics. It's about evolving into a person who can hold a special kind of light in the world. Your sensitivity grants you deep insight and empathy, which, when channeled correctly, can bring healing, inspiration, and understanding to those who need it. Yes, crowds may still drain you. Yes, you'll likely go through cycles of solitude and engagement. But each challenge helps shape you, polishing your spirit until it shines with clarity and purpose. Your sense of being different or chosen can become the foundation for a life that's richer in meaning and aligned with your highest calling. So, next time you find yourself feeling depleted in a busy room, remember this: you're not broken. You're attuned. You're stepping into a new level of awareness that many around you might not yet see. And that's okay. Trust this process. Cultivate your resilience and lean into the guidance that emerges from within. Being drained by crowds doesn't make you odd or antisocial. It can be a hallmark of awakening, a signal that you're tuned into a bigger spiritual frequency. These sensitivities don't have to limit you. They can guide you toward deeper authenticity, compassion, and self-discovery. Embrace solitude when you need it. Learn to shield and ground yourself in social situations. And remember that you're on a path with purpose. You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone, and you're not meant to. By stepping into your chosen journey, you might just light the way for others who are searching for a sense of home in this noisy, bustling world. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message resonates, remember that you're never truly alone. Trust that this path will lead you to the people and places that align with who you're becoming. Until then, honor your sensitivity, cherish your solitude, and know that you're exactly where you need to be on your remarkable, ever-unfolding journey.